Hello and welcome to the Video Game Book Club. This month we read Far Cry Absolution by Urban Waite.
A Far Cry 5 novel.
Yeah, it was actually the first tie-in novel they made for the Far Cry series, which is interesting because I thought there was more, but there's only 5 and 6 that have a tie-in novel. This takes place 1 week before the events of Far Cry 5.
That is true because I thought it was going to take place a lot earlier, but Eden's Gate is established in this book and
Yeah.
Lots of stuff.
It's really right before you show up. All right, what does the back of the book say?
All right, Far Cry Absolution. Hope County, Montana, land of the free and the brave, but also home to a fanatical doomsday cult known as the Church of Eden's Gate that has slowly been infiltrating the residents' daily lives in the past years. Mary May Fairgrave. Her name is Mary May. That's not a middle name. A local barkeep has lost almost everything to the church. Her parents died in suspicious conditions, and her brother, entranced by the cult leader's charismatic words, has vanished, although everyone seems to know where he is. When the authorities refuse to investigate further, really, she just goes to the sheriff, and he's like he's a grown man.
Doing anything illegal.
She decides to take matters into her own hands. So dumb, Mary.
Kind of forcibly, though.
She's like, fine, I'll do it myself. And then she, wrecks her car.
Stumbles her way through it.
Local hunter William Boyd, that's main character number 2, was saved by Eden's Gate years ago during the darkest moments of his life. When his duties lead him to cross paths with Mary May, the daughter of one of his old friends, he soon discovers that what is happening in the county is far from what he believed.
A Far Cry, would you say?
It's because he lives in a shack in the middle of the woods and does not go out much.
Nice house, the game.
Up against an omniscient and dangerous adversary. Is that supposed to be John? Is he omniscient?
I guess.
All-knowing?
He's really the main bad guy of this.
Mary May stands little chance, but the unexpected intervention of William Boyd will change her journey as well as his. So this is Ubisoft Entertainment 2018. All rights reserved.
This came out a month before the game came out. And both main characters are in this game in some way. Mary May is actually in the game physically. She's the Falls End bartender, which is like the main town in John's area. And William Boyd...
Why would you stay in John's area after all of that?
Because she loves her bar. Her bar is called the Spread Eagle.
Oh, gross.
It is pretty gross. And William Boyd, his house can be found in John's territory northeast of Falls End. It's pink. It's a pink house. It's on a hill. It's not as into the woods as I thought it would be. I was running around the map while I was listening to the audiobook, just looking at all the grayed out areas I missed while I was reading, and I went to this pink house and I went to the bunker and I found a note from Boyd, and listening to the audiobook, it lined up exactly with what was happening. It was kind of magical, actually. So, it's canon. This book is canon. Do you think you should read this before playing Far Cry 5?
You could either, actually. I don't think there's not really any spoilers. You don't meet a lot of the other characters, so,
Not really, unless you want to know more about Mary May, I guess.
Well, I mean, they don't even really get into, the father, and they mention the other siblings, but you don't see them at all in this book, so, it is kind of an introduction. And, well, it's not like the beginning of Eden's Gate, either. It's like, they're already there, and they suck, so.
They came up from Georgia.
I like the fact that this book is sectioned off with, quotes.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Of the Father and the Bible. So the first one is the prologue, and it is a quote from Matthew 13:39. The harvest is the end of the age, and the Reapers are angels.
The last chapter, there's like, what, 5 chapters in this?
Something like that.
The 5th chapter quote is the quote that Boyd quotes in his note in his bunker. So I think that's interesting.
Oh, there's 5 sections in here. No one believes death is coming until the moment it does, and most still refuse to believe it even then. And that is a quote from the Faza.
That's really cool. I like that it was in there. I didn't actually expect it, honestly. But yeah, you can go see Boyd's place.
That was cool.
Can't find Boyd though. I don't know where he is. I ran into the woods. I ran around the woods. I didn't see no Boyd. So yeah, I don't know. Should you read this before or after? I think it could go either way.
You could go either way. Like, you could do either. So, or if you're not thinking about playing at all, then if you want to read this instead as a little background, but you do miss quite a bit of the devious nature of Eden's Gate, although you get a little glimpse into it. You see John.
I think it would be interesting to read this ahead of time before playing the game.
It was a little peek. Little sneak peek.
Little peek of your first little mini boss.
Which is, we have to say that when we played together, we did not start with John, which was
what we were really supposed to do.
We did the back way.
Yeah, we did it backwards. We went up and then we went down.
So start with John and things make more sense.
Yeah, it really does. We spent so much time with Jacob that kind of ignored John for a long time.
Which, we'll start off the text that I sent you before you started read is, good job, Urban Wait, and not making this book rapey.
Yeah, oh my gosh, this and Far Cry 5. I half expected, I was like, there's going to be a rape scene. It's a cult. It's a cult thing. There's going to be a rape scene. And there wasn't in both the book and the game. So, Far Cry 5! Best Far Cry game.
Yes, Urban Wait, way to go, because it definitely could have gone that way. It's gone that way in a couple books that we've already read, so we appreciate you and the things you don't put in your book.
So I read the audiobook. I don't remember who narrated it, so I'm very sorry. It might have been Urban himself, but I check my app. I have the Audible app.
So this one was available on audio.
Yes, there was an audiobook, although, like I said last episode, I bought it in French first, like a dummy. So if you're gonna go on and buy it on Amazon, make sure that it's the English version, because they'll trick you and they'll make you buy another one.
Well, this also, the book that I have is marked in pounds and not in US dollars, so...
Oh yeah, that's Titan Books. That's European.
Yes, so...
Okay, this is narrated by Mark Bramhall.
How was Mark?
Mark was raspy as hell. He had a great hick voice, although, okay, I liked all of the voices he did. He can also do a really, really good Spanish accent for the sheepherder guy.
Oh, shout out. Those are my favorite characters.
But he gave John a really creepy hick voice, like very raspy, like, you got a pretty mouth.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, John's like the most city boy of all of them, and it was really creepy to hear that.
So the voice actor in the game, and I'm sorry, I don't remember your name, but he was on Castle, and he plays like the nicest guy ever. So when we played the game, and I was like, I know that voice, and then he was super creepy. I was just like, way to go.
It wasn't like hick raspy, so it was super weird to be like, is that John that's talking?
He's like a wannabe rock star. He probably what was that douchebag brand that all the
douchebag brand?
Wannabe cool guy, older men were wearing to be hip youngsters.
What? I don't know. I'm not in the older men hip youngster scene.
I think someone knows what I'm talking about.
He's like, I don't know, the most clean shaven of them, and like, you know, he has a V-neck though, so take with that what you will. Okay. Anyway, enough about John. Do you like this book?
I actually really enjoyed it. I thought it goes at a really good speed. I got a little annoyed with Miss Mary May.
Really?
Yeah. I'm like, girl, I know that that's your brother, but...
I don't know. I get it, but...
I don't see why he's worth it, but... And then also, because I found Mary May a little annoying, but are there any, like, good characters? The only good characters, the people that I felt like
were wronged.
are the sheep herders. There's
Yeah,
the
they were
father
good
and
guys.
son sheep herder, and they're trying to help everyone else out, and they get the crop kicked out of them.
I thought it was kind of boring at times. There's like I think it was chapter 5. No, chapter 1 and chapter 4 I felt were too long.
You know, because they're setting everything up.
Yeah, and
Because
I
4 is
get
the setup for 5, and then 1 has to really tell you who all these people
like
actually are.
maybe I'm a little biased because I already have played the game and I know the cult, but in chapter 1 seems to set that up like, look, these guys are bad. Huh, look how bad they are. It's like, I know, I got it. I know the rules. I get it, but maybe if you didn't, maybe it's unfair for me to say that because if you didn't play the game, you wouldn't know anything about this cult. You just hear what Mary May was saying in the beginning chapter. And then 4, I guess I'll talk about that when we get into spoilers.
It's a setup for the end, so it's like
They just took too long to do a thing, and it frustrated me.
Yeah.
I was like, dang, why is this taking so... Because when I was listening to it on Audible, it does it in chapters. So, like, chapter 1 was, like, 15 minutes, and then Prologue was, like, 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Chapter 1 was, like, 2 hours. And then
Dang.
chapter 3 was, like, okay, it's like an hour. And then chapter 4 was, like, 3 hours. I was like, all right, next chapter. And then they had the little chapter thing, and I was like, oh boy, oh no. I kind of miss just having the whole book thing laid out instead of chapter by chapter.
But it's not like in the actual like book. It's like parts. It's not chapters. Like, it just says like prologue 1, 2, and it goes to 5.
I figured it was chapters, so.
But they are definitely longer than your normal chapters. So if you're a person that's like, wait till I get to the end of the chapter.
Yeah, there's 2 chapters that are gonna really eat up your time.
Yes. But all in all, it's not a very long book. It didn't take me very long to read.
It took me a day. 8 hours.
So it's like 235 pages. So and it moves pretty quickly. I think all of the events, I know from prologue to chapter or part 1, it says like a week before. So you go like back. But I think it all takes place in a couple of days.
Is it like, it's like 2 days maybe at most?
Something like that, yeah. So it happens pretty quickly.
Yeah, I liked this. It wasn't that bad. It was a little bit boring, but if you really, really like Far Cry 5, this is great. If you're thinking about playing Far Cry 5, I guess it gives you a little insight on why you would want to kill John first.
Well, there's a lot of things that happen in Far Cry 5, and this is very small, like, we're just going to briefly talk about wolves. We're just going to briefly talk about, I keep forgetting what the name of that powder stuff is. The
Bliss?
Bliss. We're going to introduce you to Bliss. We're going to talk about the wolves. And so it's like a glimmer of what you actually have to go through and get into in the game. But I thought you did a good job.
It's really fun to listen to while you're just running around the map. So I recommend that. Just go find out all the areas you missed.
Though. So he's trapping. Will is a hunter, and he traps food for Eden's Gate. And he doesn't fish, which is such a huge part of that freaking game.
I mean, kind of. You don't have to fish in that game.
Come on, Billy Boyd. Yeah, he goes by Will, not Billy.
He could have gone by Billiam. Sure.
Billiam Boyd.
Okay, so now we're going to go chapter by chapter and tell you the entire story in case you're like, I don't want to read that book, but I'm interested in the plot.
Or if you've already read it and you want to reminisce with us.
Yes, reminisce.
All right, so prologue.
I was confused. I thought this was chapter 1 for like a long time.
I
had to go back.
Super confused with the prologue as well. It's like only a couple pages long.
Can I also say, like, sometimes it kind of sucks just having the audiobook because I want to go back and check something, but I don't want to like rewind a bunch, and I don't know what chapter it's from. So sometimes it's nice to have a physical book and just be like, because there's a part in this that I'm like, did they say that? It's in the wiki, but it's not. I don't remember it in the book, so I'm like, did I just zone out? And I can't check unless I go all the way back and just listen to this guy talk.
Where are you checking?
I'll talk about this later.
Okay. So Mary May goes to the sheriff, and the sheriff,
Earl Whitehorse, who's in the game,
like any other law enforcement in video games, is awful. Like
you're law enforcement in this game, though.
Well, you're federale.
Are we federal? I thought no, because the marshal came in. He's the federal one, and then you're part of the town.
We're not part of the town. They flew us in.
No.
I don't know. I haven't played this game in a long time.
I'm pretty sure because the sheriff, like, you're like new.
Yeah.
Maybe you just moved to town, but I'm pretty sure all your deputies are under the sheriff and not the state marshal. They only flew in one dude.
So the sheriff
she goes to the sheriff to get answers about her dad's quote-unquote car accident and her brother joining Eden's Gate, the local cult, because she thinks it's connected and murder is illegal.
Mary May, you know I can't do a thing about it. You know it wasn't nothing but an accident. Even if it wasn't, there's not a goddamn thing to be done.
He says being a cult isn't illegal, and he died in a car accident that doesn't have to do with the cult, so there's nothing he can do about it.
Yeah, he's like, tough shit, girl.
So, defeated, she goes to her car, and John Seed, who we were talking about, the youngest seedling of the family, who is like 25% in charge of the cult, drives up and knocks on her window and is like, heard you were talking shit and selling alcohol at your bar, and we can't have that. And then
she's like up the mountain. She's like, well, then I'm gonna go get my brother. And then she goes up the mountain.
Well, she drives away. And then he follows her in her car.
Yeah, because it says.
And then he drives her off the road.
Mary May was halfway up the mountain when she saw the white church truck. So that's like their territory, and she's got a gun with her.
They all have guns.
Mm-hmm.
This is Montana.
Yeah, and then John Seed is like, "You scared? Should I be?
You scared?"
And she keeps calling her father Daddy, which is weird to me, but I'm sure people do that.
People do that. Yeah. So. After she gets driven off the road by John, and crashes, she runs into the woods, and that's the end of the prologue.
Yes. Like, they're like, you should go, and she's like, well, it's free country, and I'm gonna do me.
It's a free country.
Then they drive her off the road.
Because they don't like alcohol, because they're religious, they've been, like, getting rid of her shipments and stuff, so it's driving her bar out of business, too.
But they use Bliss. Explain that to me.
I don't understand religion.
So Bliss is it because they don't control it, or because it like makes their people act weird? Or so Bliss is like a drug that creates.
Yeah, they made a drug out of flowers that causes them. Do they control them?
Like, do they control where the bliss goes?
No, do they control the people on Bliss?
They like
the angels.
Well, he uses it later in the book.
Yeah,
for her.
He basically uses it to like chill you out, so you can make you do
like
stuff.
Zombied. Yeah.
Is it like that drug where they give you it when you are getting surgery done, so that you can be awake but you forget everything afterwards?
Maybe. But then it's like if you take too much of it, like in the game, if you take too much of it or something like that, it causes you to be.
Your eyes cloud over and you like just wander.
Yeah, but then they're like addicted like to it, and you
crack addict.
Yeah. You're a Bliss addict.
So,
addicted to Bliss.
I guess probably because they can't control alcohol consumption, so they're just trying to get rid of it completely.
Or because that's more of a sin.
Technically, yes, that is.
Although you have communion, right? But they're not Catholic, so I don't know.
I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, that's the end of the prologue.
Yeah, I mean, it's like exciting things, but then if you didn't know anything about Far Cry, you would be so lost. You'd be like, what the crap is happening?
Just think of it, don't think of it in terms of Far Cry.
Yeah.
Think of it in terms of, like, it's its own thing.
Because you're like, this girl is like, her dad died in an accident, and she's got to go find her brother, but...
Well, I mean, there has to be drugs. It's a Far Cry game.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, so Mary May is...
in the woods.
She hasn't escaped yet, though, right? Because it says the very end of it's the truck went airborne, crashing over the side of the road into the forest beyond. So... You don't know what happens to Mary May until later on in the story.
I already told you that she's in the game, so she's fine.
She's fine.
She's in the woods.
Yeah.
And then we move on to chapter 1, which is all about our boy William Will Boyd. He's a cult member who lives in the woods in a house.
He's like an original cult member, too.
Yeah, he's an old school cult member.
So he's ancient.
In a house given to him by the cult. He basically hunts for them, and they sell the skins, and they eat the meat, and he gets some of that money and some of that meat.
Well, when you're listening to this, I really took it that he was living in, like, POS shack in the middle of the woods.
Yeah, it sounds like that in the book, but when you go to his house in the game, it's like this nice pink house that's, like, filled with food.
Because he's got, like, his store is usually, like, it's under the house.
It's also not that far away from other houses.
It doesn't have, like, running water or anything like that.
He has a sink.
I thought he cleaned everything outside.
Maybe he's just living rough for no reason when they gave him a nice house.
He's punishing himself because of what he did, but so he's doing his own penance. But he's hunting deer and rabbits, and he had rabbits, and then he
sometimes
meets
deer.
A bear.
Yeah, so the cult member assigned to watch him is this guy named Lonnie.
Who's a douchebag.
Who is suspicious of him because he thinks that he doesn't believe. Lonnie tasks him with hunting a bear that's been killing cattle at the Kershaw Ranch, which honestly I couldn't find on the map.
I think I remember being there.
I think the name changed to some other name.
I don't know. I thought it
I mean, maybe
familiar, but
he agrees to go kill that bear, but he's like, wait, that's illegal. You can't just hunt a bear. Which I don't know hunting laws. Are you not allowed to do that?
There's certain seasons that you hunt things, but I think he said because it's endangered.
Oh, okay. But Far Cry 5 did teach me that some counties don't let you collect rainwater. I didn't know that.
Oh, that is true. Partly because of utilities, because you have to get your water from somewhere, and partly because people that store rainwater don't do it properly, and so they create cholera epidemics.
I mean, I see. Okay, that makes sense.
You have to actually know what you're doing when you're storing water.
That water.
Yeah, because that's how you get diseases.
Yeah, I didn't know that you couldn't do that until I read a note in Dutch's bunker in this game, and I was like, "What? Really? That seems like a thing you could just do."
No, there's actually quite a few counties.
I think can you do it in California?
It depends on the county. Learning things from Power Crap.
Learning things I can't do.
Yeah.
So Will sets up a pit trap like he used in Nam.
Yes, so
to catch a tiger.
Will, part of his backstory is he was in Nam, and like every other soldier story from Nam, it didn't go so well for him. But although he did come home, he's got a little PTSD though.
There was a tiger that tried to eat, or actually succeeded in eating a lot of his friends, and no one ever saw it, so it was like a ghost tiger, and he's like, I set up this pit to try to catch it, and Lonnie's like, did you catch it? And he's like, no. And Lonnie's like, why'd you tell me that story? And then they set up a pit anyway.
He's like, all right, I'm gonna build the pit.
What a waste of time. And he catches...
Didn't, people fall in the pit? Isn't that...
Yeah. People ended up falling in the pit. It was a bad idea, and Lonnie's like, sounds like a good idea to me, and then makes the pit anyway. But the pit ends up killing a mother bear instead of the bear that they wanted, the big boy bear. Then he sort of befriends the cub of that mother bear.
He feeds it,
and it just jumps around him and stuff, and it's cute. And then the cult tries to shoot the cub, and to save face, and to also get the baby bear to run off so that it doesn't die. He shoots around it so that it will run away, and it's so betrayed. And
but John knows, because John knows everything that
you've been faking.
Then they try to kill his bear cub, and then he knows oh shit, things aren't gonna go well for me.
Yeah, and then he also finds out that Lonnie may or may not have killed the Kershaws, because he went to their ranch, and Lonnie was just outside being sketchy, and then he went and he's like, where's the Kershaws? And he's like, oh, the cult is gonna reuse them.
Yeah.
And he's like, reuse them? And he's like, I gotta go use their bathroom. And he went in, and there's nobody in there.
Everything in the house is as it was. They didn't take any of the clothes with them. There's lunch or breakfast left over on the table.
On the table, and he's like, this is sketchy. I don't like this.
But then you hear about that the cult has warehouses full of stuff that they give people.
Yeah.
And that something's
and he finds a baby shoe. Sad violin. Finds a baby shoe, and he's like, this is the Kershaw's little daughter's shoe. What?
Why wouldn't they take any of their stuff with them?
Yeah.
And they're like, don't ask questions, Will. You're questioning the cult. Where's your faith?
So I thought this chapter was really boring. They spent way too long in the beginning with him in the woods hunting and worrying about bears. Because he was worried
about bears.
He was worried about the bears before they told him to hunt the bear. He was
That's how you see it in the stream?
Yeah, he was skinning a rabbit, and then in the stream, and then he's like, there's a bear, and then they spent 2 pages just talking about him being oh, I gotta go get my gun. It's over there. There's a bear.
I'm gonna slowly walk over
They just
there,
talk
and then I'm
about
gonna
him
throw the rabbit at the bear.
in the woods hunting for way too long. And I'm like, I get you're trying to set up, like,
Yeah.
him, but I'm bored.
That's probably because we're not hunters. Like, that stuff doesn't...
Even if
do
I
it
was
for
a
us.
hunter, which I would never. uh, it's just describing the, like, scenery.
I have to say, the whole time, though, they were talking about that little bear, I was really hoping that someone would feed it, like, a cheeseburger or something.
And it would be Cheeseburger.
No, because obviously, since you told us that it's, like, a week before or whatever, so Cheeseburger's definitely a full-grown bear.
Yeah.
Cheeseburger, best companion.
Well, Cheeseburger has his own, like, facility that's shaped like a cheeseburger for him.
He's got his own merch.
He has his own merch.
Cheeseburger, by the way, if you have not played the game,
oh yeah, that's right,
is a giant bear
with diabetes. And they have an exhibit for him in Jacob's area, and
he becomes one of your companions.
Yeah, he can be a companion, and he's like the
he's
best.
Awesome.
That was the reason I was like, Far Cry 5's the best, because there's a bear with diabetes named Cheeseburger that can be your companion.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing has come close to that since. Best companion.
Best companion. He's actually pretty good.
Yeah, he actually is pretty good. Like,
he definitely mauls all the people.
I was playing it yesterday while listening to this book, and I had Boomer the dog and Cheeseburger, and Boomer kept getting hit by cars because his AI is dumb, and Cheeseburger...
He's so sweet, though.
Cheeseburger's pro.
Peaches is also, like, out of nowhere. Peaches is the cougar.
Yeah, Peaches is the cougar. Anyway, great game. Yeah, like I said, I guess if you hadn't played the game, the world building and cult lore is necessary, but sheesh.
Yeah, well, and then, so that's, the setup with the bear is the setup because they need him to hunt Mary May. And so they're like testing his, I just checked at the very end of chapter 1, he's like, you're asking me to hunt a human being? I'm not, and John smiled, I'm not really asking. So they're like testing his skills so that they can hunt down Mary May, because apparently they lost her when her car...
John comes up to him and is like, hey, you can track stuff in the woods good, right? Can you track a human girl? And Will is very uncomfortable about this due to him knowing Mary May, but he does it anyway.
So I don't know if he really has a choice, because he definitely felt from Lonnie that like his faith is being questioned and his allegiance. So
yeah, he looked Lonnie up and down and was like, can I take him? And he's like, he's looked like the strong kind of Twiggy. I don't know.
Because Lonnie drinks too, and that's not allowed.
Yeah, Lonnie is an alcoholic, and you know what we said about the cult and alcohol.
And he
Should've done
likes
Bliss,
the
Lonnie.
ladies, which... Growth.
Yeah, so him and Lonnie are now going out to find Mary May in the woods after unsuccessfully catching the bear.
Wrong bear.
Wrong bear.
Is this the bear that he saw in the... That was weird too. Like, he sees it's like raining, and then he sees a bear...
Talking about the end of the book?
That was at the beginning, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. I think that's the same bear that they told him to hunt. Like, in the beginning, he was worried about this bear.
It's like he's like, there's fog or lightning or I don't know what was, but
yeah,
he,
it
like,
was a thunderstorm.
He sees a glimpse of a bear, and then all of a sudden
he goes and hides in his shack and stuff.
Yeah.
There's a whole long section about him worrying about a bear, and then they're like, hey, can you kill a bear? And he's like, oh man, not the bear I've been thinking about.
Had a spiritual moment, me and that bear, and
yeah, so too long about him and that bear. Too long.
Well, it's symbolic, but
I roll. Okay, chapter 2 is him and Lonnie in the woods trying to find Mary May, and they come across this little cabin with a sheep herder and his son in the woods.
In the cabin in
and
the woods.
The sheep herder and the son were hiding her, but they don't know that. They don't know that. We know that though.
Wait, did we start off with them still? Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. They don't really like trounce around in the woods very much.
No.
It's straight to the point now. Now that we're done with the bear shenanigans, they question.
This is where we meet Holly too, or do we meet Holly and? Holly is a lady of the cult that takes care of business.
Yeah, well, we don't get to her yet.
Okay.
We're going ahead. Sheep herder and his son are holding or had Mary May. Sorry, I was thinking about Holly. Had Mary May at their house. She was hiding there, and then I think she left, and then
you find out that the son takes her on horseback somewhere.
Okay.
I thought that came later.
Well, she's not there when they get beat up.
No, because that's later. Oh, this is where, so at the very beginning of chapter 2, John and Will are still talking, and he talks about Jacob, and he says, "My oldest brother Jacob has been tracking wolves in the mountains nearby, and it's some of his equipment." That's important because he puts trackers on them, so so Jacob puts a tracker, like hunts a wolf, puts a tracker on it, and then it takes it back to the pack. And so that way they know where the pack is, and then they kill the rest of the pack.
But we don't care about Jacob in this book.
No, but that's important because that's how they find out. That's how they're tracking Will. Because Lonnie has the tracker on him.
Well, yeah, they like assign him with a person.
Yeah, and he's like, "Why do they keep on? Where do these people keep coming?" Like, and it's because he had a tracker on him. So that's your first little glimpse of Jacob, although he's not in any of the other books. So, but it does have to do, and then this is where he has the conversation with Lonnie about how he knows Mary May, and like he was tight with their family back when he wasn't in isolation. And then you get Mary May's comes in, and that's where you find out what happened to her because it goes back and forth, which was super confusing between the two of them. So chapter 2 is
okay.
back and forth.
I only have my notes, so if it's not in my notes, I don't know what's in the book. This is why I have to read these books like the day before or the day of, and then take notes immediately because my brain will just be like, "What's that book?" Oh, it just like throws it away. Like that book was done, throw it away. Like even if I liked the book, it's like no, it's gone. So if it's not in my notes, I have no idea. It's not on my 2 sets of notes.
So we do see.
You see what school did to me?
Mary May meets the guys first, and so it's in time. And so she's running away from the creepy cult people, but she's still gonna look for a brother because she's committed.
Yeah.
She's like, I wrecked my car. Like I don't have any more family. The bar's going under because I can't sell booze, and Drew. Drew is her brother's name. Drew. And so then she's all beat up and stuff, and the sheep herders help her, and they tell her the dad doesn't speak English.
No, the dad does not speak English.
The son speaks English, and so Mary May speaks very little Spanish. Will speaks Spanish though, and so Mary May meets them, and they give her some food, and she spends the night with in their protection, and then the son takes her on horseback further. And then because she's up in the mountain, she can see them when Will and Lonnie approach.
Okay.
And then take it away.
Yeah. Well, I just have that they question them, and Lonnie gets mad that the son isn't giving him things and respecting him at all, so he beats him up. And Will is having none of this and gets Lonnie out of there. And then I say eventually that they see Mary May running in the woods and Lonnie shoots at her. And Will is like, "Wait, aren't we supposed to be catching her and not killing her?" And he's like, "Nah, let's just kill her with the code one anyway." And then Will will not stand for that and starts to fight Lonnie.
Yes. Who would win in a fight between Will and Lonnie? Well,
after him being like, "I don't want to fight him. He looks, skinny ripped." But then he's like, "I'm just gonna fight him anyway." He tried to kill this lady. So they quarrel. Lonnie falls off a cliff, breaks his neck, and dies.
Like he should.
And Will gets an ulcer.
Yeah, Will has like consumption or something. I don't know what's happening with Will. He's spitting up blood. He's been spitting up blood.
They say he has an ulcer and it just gets worse with each fight he's in.
I think he's got something else.
I don't know. Just ulcers cause you to spit up blood.
Yes.
He's got anime disease.
Why would he? He wouldn't. Ulcers are caused by stress, but he's been like hunting in the woods this whole time.
Not stressful enough for him, I guess.
No, I think he's got a little.
Picking fights is stressful.
Yeah. So he's got an internal injury.
Yes. He's got an internal injury and Lonnie just died. Mm-hmm. So he still decides to follow Mary May, but Mary May finds her brother Drew.
What a douchebag.
And Drew's like, "Oh, come back to the compound with me. They want to talk to you."
She's like, "They just shot at me."
And he's like, "Oh, that's a misunderstanding. They just want to talk to you." And then her and Will go back to the compound separately.
Yes. Mary May is with us now. You helped save her, is what John says to Will.
Yeah, John takes Will back to the compound, and he doesn't seem worried about the fact that Lonnie just died. He says Lonnie didn't believe that much anyway. He drank alcohol, and we, the cult, hate that. We hate it. So
The
who
loosening of
cares?
his faith. He's not a true believer because he drinks the booze.
And this is when Will runs into Holly, who dishes that the cult is getting weird because she's also
She's
an
an
original
OG, yeah.
cult member. She's got the hot details because she sleeps with John.
For protection.
She's also warning him about the fact that he doesn't come to church, which makes everyone really suspicious of him.
She's like, thank you for feeding us this whole time, but you need to make more of an effort to be part of this cult.
You need to come all the way down that hill.
Excommunicated.
To the compound. And honestly, on the map, the compound and his house is very far away.
Yeah.
So I don't blame him.
And he doesn't have a ride, like, every time. They have to come pick up the food in the truck, so it's not like he's...
Yeah. Why can't you just show it on the TV? Like in the game? Oh, wait, he doesn't have one.
No, he doesn't. They can just listen to it as it's being
But they
broadcast.
do have one in his house in the game. So, and that's the end of chapter 2.
Well, Mary May is like, she's in the compound, and...
yeah, she's just kind of in the
She talks about her parents a lot. She thinks the world of her parents. Her brother's not that into that.
Her brother doesn't like the parents as much.
No.
Chapter 3 is where a lot of stuff happens.
It does.
Chapter 3, Will is driven back to Falls End, which is the main town in the game, where Mary May's bar is, by Holly. At Falls End, he runs into Jerome Jeffries, who's also in the game as a companion. No, he's a companion in New Dawn. He's not a companion in the other one. He was the town priest. He explains what happened to the bar owners and that they're dead, and Eden's Gate is 100% at fault.
Doesn't Will go to, like, their graves, and that's where he meets Jerome?
Yeah, he's at the cemetery.
Yeah, he shows up, and he's like, I heard you got questions.
Yeah.
And so, is this also where he sees the house that's the center, and then he goes back, and it's no longer there?
Yes.
And he's like, what is happening? I saw a house, it's the center on it.
He brought that up with Jeffries, and he's like, that happens.
He was like, yeah, it's happening all the time.
Yeah.
Where are you, dude? In a cabin in the woods?
Yeah, where have you been? Center happens, and they disappear.
And then the house gets repainted and repossessed.
It's repainted pink.
So weird.
And then, during this conversation, Will and Jerome decide that they're going to help Mary May escape the compound together. Bro team. Meanwhile, Mary May gets separated from Drew and gets quote-unquote talked to. But really, they forcibly baptize and drug her while she gets ready to get a chest tattoo.
So Will watches a baptism, like, earlier in the book, and it gets, like, crazy violent, and he hears, what is happening?
That one was weird, because he was, like, watching from a hill, and, like, you know,
through the
scope. Father was there, and John was there, and then he heard, like, a shotgun sound, and then nobody knew what was up, so he looked back at them, and everyone's still chill.
Yeah.
So he doesn't know what's up. I don't know what's up.
I didn't get that at all either. I thought,
Did they shoot them?
Someone didn't want to be baptized or wasn't, like, baptized enough. And he's like, these baptisms are getting aggressive.
Yeah, did they shoot the person getting baptized?
I thought he saw, like, red in the water.
Did somebody else shoot the person getting baptized?
Well, there are, like, people... like Lonnie and stuff. I think it was Lonnie.
Well, there's people, because in the game, when you're getting baptized, there's people on the shore with guns.
Yeah.
So, maybe?
If you freak out, the water's cold.
I mean, they forcibly, like, drown you.
Yeah, they do a little bit. And isn't that Bliss stuff in the water, too? So aren't you, like, hallucinating?
You're also getting a little drugged, so. It's, forcibly baptized. And so she got that, and they put, like, a bag over your head, too. Like, you're getting waterboarded, basically. And then they drug her so that she'll hang out in this creepy tattoo room, because the cult initiating process is they have to tattoo your sin.
Well, John looks into your eyes, and he sees what your sin is.
He thinks you have. He's going to tattoo it right on your chest.
Which is the worst place to get tattooed, because there's,
ouch,
like, not a lot of fat there, and, like, it's, I mean, obviously it's visible, and I guess it's better than your face, but,
ow.
So there are the 7 deadly sins, which are not in the Bible, actually, so, what sin does, well, we learn about Drew's sin first, don't we?
Envy. And then he also gets envy.
Yes.
Which doesn't make any sense.
And then Will, we find out later, was also tattooed with his sin, because this has been like
Was his wrath?
his was wrath.
Classic.
When do we find out
What?
about his family? Like that is that part 4?
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
I was like, when did we, what? Okay, we'll talk about, this is part 4. We'll talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah, so in case you didn't play the game, you get your sin tattooed on your chest after getting drugged and baptized, and then afterwards you have to say yes to joining the cult and getting your sins.
So that's like saying yes, like you're automatically.
Yeah, you're not saying yes yet. You're not even saying it yet. You have to say yes to get out of that chair, to say yes to the cult, and then he rips the skin off the chest.
Yeah, they like cut it off.
They cut the skin, and then he hangs it up.
So there's this creepy ass room that
has dangly skin in it with fins. And it's so gross. So she's in that room.
And it's just all these, and they've said it before, and it's in, you can see it in the game, right?
Yeah, you're in the room.
Yeah.
You escape from it. You chair wiggle out of there.
At first, it's like, is that paper? And then you're like, no, that's pieces of flesh.
No, he talks about it. It's so gross. So yeah, that's the initiating process.
So, question: what would John see if he looked in your eyes?
Trash. What would he see if he looked in your eyes?
Probably gluttony, because I'm fat and John's a dick.
John is a dick. Yeah, so she's in that room. That all happened. Will and Jerome are driving to the compound. Will's gonna go in to get MM over here. Eminem. Yeah. And Jerome's gonna be the getaway car. So Will goes into the tattoo room, and he finds her, and he picks her up, and she's still drugged, but she's like, no, wait, I came here for my brother. I'm not leaving without him. It's just a tattoo.
Which her brother brought her into that room and is like...
Yeah.
Like, knew all what was up and what was going to happen to her, and
they actually made him leave the room because they were like, oh, family's going to do weird stuff if we hurt other family members.
Yeah.
So, yeah. She's like, it's just a tattoo. Like, whatever. I can get a tattoo. You go get my brother, and then we'll escape later. And he's like, okay, I guess. And he leaves her with a hunting knife.
Under her, like, calf or whatever it was.
Good
it was
luck.
Weird. Because she's still tied up with it. She's still drugged a little bit.
She's still drugged and tied up in this chair. And with dangly skin everywhere. And she's still like, it's just a tattoo.
It's just a tattoo.
It's fine.
I don't know if she fully realizes that it'll be cut from her chest, but, like, Will knows because he's like, oh, look, there's mine.
Yeah, he sees his own. He's like, hey, that's my tat. Ew. I know my skin.
Ugh. That's so gross. But
stop thinking about it. Will finds Drew. And then they fight. He like walks in and
because he knows them and he knew their parents and he's like, oh.
He walks in with a gun and Drew's like, oh, that's normal. All our cult members walk in with a gun, but he's also like, I'm suspicious of Will because he's a non-believer, and he
doesn't go to church,
grabs another gun, and then
how ungrateful are these people that he's been feeding them forever, and they're like, why aren't you at church?
It'd be like that though,
because I'm hunting your freaking food, people. How about that? So they fight.
They fight, and Will ties Drew up and gags him.
Remember that Will has a stomach ulcer.
Yeah, Will has a stomach ulcer, and it just gets worse with this fight.
Yes. So he does tie him up.
He ties him up and gags him, and then they
throws him over his shoulder.
They try to sneak out, but they end up shooting their way out of the compound, which is relatable. He
also, like, maybe this is the thing that was annoying to you, where he does the setup where he, like, pulls the oven out or whatever it was, and then you're like, well, that's weird. Now that house is filling up with gas, and then they leave the house.
Oh, wait. That doesn't happen till later, though.
What's the shootout?
Not yet.
Yeah.
Because he has to get Drew out into find a place to hide.
Yeah.
And he's already failed the sneak test, so he's getting shot at, and then the alarms are going off.
Yes.
And John comes back in to give the tattoo to Mary May. He's like already like mid-tattoo. Like he's almost done.
Well, hers is envy. It's not that long.
Yeah, it's not that long. And then he gets distracted due to the alarm going off and Will shooting up the place, and then Mary May drugs him and escapes.
Because he re-drugs her, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's blowing Bliss in her face, and then she's like, oh, here we go again, and then she somehow...
Yeah, he's like, I like alone time with my tattoo patients or whatever, and then he's like, you know what? I'm gonna drug you some more because I don't want to deal with this.
I don't want you to feel this.
My art.
It's not the whole point is that you like have to go through the pain of your sin,
and then yeah.
once you've like feel like you've overcome your sin, then
I guess the pain of the sin is ripping it off your chest.
which is, can we go outside of the book a little bit, because the father has all of the sins on him, but he doesn't.
He burdens all your sins.
He doesn't take.
That's
his
a religious
off.
thing, right?
Yeah.
He takes upon him all of your sins. That's a Jesus-y thingy.
But like he
put all your bad feelings and vibes.
I feel like they're carved in
Jesus.
him though, aren't they? They're not like tattooed.
They are carved. But I thought it wasn't a tattoo that he was doing on you. I thought it was literally carving for a while. Because it's so janky. Like, sorry, John, your tattoo work is amateur.
Yeah.
It's real bad. Tat. It looks like you carved it into the skin. But you actually, he does have a tattoo gun. Doesn't he carve it into your skin in the game? Like, he didn't have his gun with him, and he does it in the church.
Yeah.
So, maybe just you're special and you get carved.
Probably because the Mary May, she broke his
tattoo gun. Yeah. So she ends up drugging him and escaping.
So Will has taken Drew out, and
yeah, they find a home in the compound to hide in, and that's when the oven thing happens. Because they all meet up in the house.
I thought it wasn't the same house, because I was like, that's weird. Because then he pulls it, and then he like leaves, and then they go to a different house.
Because he tells Mary to run and go find Jerome, and she's like, okay, I will do that.
Yeah, because this is outside of the
Will
tattoo place.
Blows up the house to make an escape.
But, like, that was later. Like,
was it later?
He pulls it out, and then they meet up, and then all of a sudden there's an explosion right when they need it. And
yeah,
he's like, oh, I forgot about that. It took a long time for that thing to blow up. I was like, wow.
So, Mary May goes off to find Jerome, and Will and Drew are being pursued by cultists in trucks.
And he's
for a long time.
Freaking running with this grown-ass man
and he's like,
on his
heavy.
shoulder. And he's got a stomach ulcer. And he's been, like, running around all day. And
I like that he was like, I need to get your sister because you're heavy.
Yeah.
And then he doesn't. She comes to him.
Throws him down like the hill. That was just entertaining.
Up, like,
he's like, oh, I can't go down the hill with him. Let me just roll
push
him down the hill. He's all tied up.
Fair enough. That guy sucks.
And then he's like shooting people, but he's dropping bullets left and right. I don't know how. Well, that's kind of how many people he shot, or how many times he shot, because he has a rifle. He doesn't have to put a cartridge in every
and
time.
Then he felt bad, and then like it was a whole section of people in trucks and him shooting them, and then him having to deal with Drew. And then that section was so long. I was like, get on with it. Is he escaping or is he not escaping?
And he's got, for some reason, all the bullets in his pocket. And
yeah, you know, pocket full of bullets.
Mm-hmm. He keeps, every time he puts his fist in there, he's dropping him on the ground.
Yeah, and that's after that really long section of him shooting at people and running away.
So Mary May makes it to Jerome's car, and she's like, oh, he said he'll meet us at the bottom of the hill. Yeah. At the road. So they're driving, and he's running with a man on his shoulder. And they're like, oh, he said he'll meet us.
It's chaotic.
And then, so they get in the car, and then they drive off, and Drew is in a mood.
Drew's in a mood. Can you blame Drew, though? Like, I know he's a bad guy, but, like, come on, you just were tied up. You were just beat up by this old man. You were tied up, and then you were thrown around and in the middle of a shootout, and then thrown down a hill, and now you're in a car with your sister and some strangers.
I like how Will was like, they were shooting at you too, dude. And he's like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, now we're on chapter 4, where they go to Will's old house. Like, his house before, like, not the cult house, his old house.
His original house.
Yeah.
So, is this where we find out about what happened to him and his family, or was that before?
Okay, so I have this section in my other notes that's like, did he talk about this? I don't remember, because according to the wiki, it says the return to his house is bittersweet, as Will reflects on how he indirectly led to his wife Sarah and daughter Callie's death. While they lived, Will drank heavily, and on the night when Sarah and Callie were driving to the bar to make him come home, he bought a drink for a friend who ended up killing them on the road.
Yes.
And I was like, when did this happen?
I remember the story.
I don't.
I just don't remember where he said it.
Did I black out?
I think it was when he was in the compound, because he was talking about, so he comes back from Nam and things are not the best for him, and so he drinks heavily, and his wife constantly has to go to the bar to bring him home because he's drunk. And so yeah, he's like it happens. I feel like it happened like early on because this is his penance. This is why he joins the cult.
Well, maybe he remembers it a little bit in his old house, right?
Yeah.
He's like, oh, my old house where I murdered my wife and child.
So they get into the house, and then is it Jerome who says, like, looks like you got a squatter because there's beer cans everywhere, and he's like,
yeah.
nope, that was just me.
That's me.
So how long has he been with the cult, and how gross is that it's been sitting there that whole time?
Nobody.
That house has to smell like stale beer and probably like other grossness.
I don't know how long he's been with the cult, but he was like an OG cult member. How long have they been there for?
They've been there for years. It says that in the back, it says the past years. I feel like they've been there for
at least a year.
Yeah.
At least a year.
Years. So they're at his house because
they're hiding.
They're hiding.
It's a terrible place to hide. They're definitely gonna check his house.
This is the last place to look.
Mary May thinks Drew's bounds are too tight.
Because his fingers are blue.
Because his fingers are blue. So they're like, okay, go clean your infected tattoo in the bathroom. We'll readjust his ties. And I wrote, funny thing about that tattoo, which I told you, is that I didn't see it in game. Like, I went to the bar and she didn't have it. So I was like, oh, is this
an inconsistency?
But there's a medical center in game with a doctor's note that says she got it removed, like, right after this book. So.
No, I don't think I would keep it.
Yeah, but doesn't tattoo removal take like a lot longer?
It's laser, but unless you have it like covered. But yeah, it was already infected, and she had it for like less than a day. So,
and this happens a week
she's like
before.
running around in the freaking dirt and stuff right after she got it.
But yeah, she removes it in a week. And in the bathroom, she sees Jerome's car get lit on fire, and the Colt and John are right outside.
Like super creepy. They're just like standing there.
Yeah, they just lit the car on fire and then they're just standing there next to
Oh, so they zip tied Drew to the chair.
Yeah, they were like, okay, we'll let your hands go free, but then they tied his chest and legs. So now he just has his hands free, but that doesn't matter because the car's now on fire and the cult's right outside.
Yep.
Will and Jerome get their guns and they go to the high ground up on the hill. And Mary May walks out of the house with her brother and a gun to his back because they think that they're here for Mary May and the brother.
Yeah.
And John's like, we're not here for you or your brother. We're here for Will because he broke the cult's bro code.
Yeah. He's faithless.
And he's like, we're not murderers. We're just here to talk. We lit your car on fire as friends.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like,
and it's like the fire is going like towards the house too as all this is happening.
Not murderers.
We're just standing there creepily while the fire is.
We're just car bombers. Leave us alone.
Yeah, just
that car lit on fire on accident. It's not us.
I like how too. So they leave Jerome's car out to the front gate because it's bolted, and he's like, "Oh, and Will's like, I'm gonna get some bolt cutters and go back and get the car," and then he never does.
He never does.
And
He's
then they lit the car on fire.
And yeah, that really gives away where they are too.
So how did they get through the bolted gate? They jump it like the other people did?
Yeah, I'm just gonna guess that they jumped it. They didn't have a car. They all like walked up.
Yeah.
So
it's very, very creepy.
Yeah, it is very creepy. Yeah, she knows people in that cult too. She's like, hey, that's my elementary school teacher who's come to kill me and join this cult. That's scary.
Elementary school teacher is standing there while
my kindergarten teacher's over there and I'm like pointing a gun at me and be like, whoa, this is not how I expected this.
Small town life.
Just small town things. So yeah, they're like, we're not murderers. And he's like, oh yeah, well, how'd my dad die then?
The Kershaws beg to differ.
We don't know that. That's a secret. That'll die with Lonnie. And Drew comes forward and reveals, while a gun is at his back, that
Does he like turn around?
I think there was a whole segment where he gave his little villain speech.
Yes.
That he, not John or the cult, killed their father.
So this is a question that I have is, the mom died first. She died of like a broken heart or whatever it was, or
I thought she died second, but I don't know.
She died first, and then the dad recently died, which is why Mary May goes to get him.
To go get him.
Yeah.
Drew from the cult, and then he got into a car accident, and then after that car accident, Drew shot him. He like survived the car accident, but then Drew came over and shot him.
I did not get that. I was a little confused.
That's my interpretation of it.
I thought that he caused the car accident.
I mean, he probably did both.
Cause yeah, he gives this like weird.
He gives a speech where he's like, "I was jealous of you. You
Yeah.
got the bar. You got better grades."
She's like, I'm the oldest. Of course, I get all this stuff. Like, you need to grow up.
Yeah, I just wanted to be loved. And she's like, "You were loved," and he's like, "No," and that's why I killed our dad.
Yeah.
And then she just shoots him in the face.
I was not surprised.
It's pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I put hot because like he gives this whole villain speech. She's like, "I killed our puppy," and she just shoots him like out of body experience.
Yeah.
Pew. And John's like, "Nice. That's exactly what we wanted."
Now we have dirt on you.
Yeah, now we have secrets we can blackmail you with. And then they leave, and Will's like, "Oh my god, they weren't here for me. They were here so that exact thing played out."
That it was.
How did they know Drew was just gonna spill the beans?
Well, Drew's kind of a.
They're like, "Drew's dumb. He's
Yeah.
gonna totally spill the beans. Come on, guys, let's watch this shit show happen up on the hill."
Maybe she'll kill him so that way. We don't have murderers here.
Yeah, and Will and Jerome just sit there like flabbergasted. They're like, "So what now?"
Plot twist.
They're like, "What do we do now? Like, what's the point anymore?"
Yeah, it ends very oddly.
It does. 'cause
Like all of a sudden, all right, well,
Chapter
Drew's dead.
5 is really anticlimactic after all that. Jerome's like goes back to Fulton. Will goes back to the woods. Holly and the cult take over his cabin. They take it back because he's no longer a cult
I thought they
member.
were waiting for him.
They were, yeah, because they thought he'd come back, and he saw them, and he was like,
It's like, I can outlast you in the woods. Watch me.
not dealing with that. So he goes further into the woods, and then he sees the bear that he was originally tasked to kill, and is like, "I haven't done enough to gain absolution." Book title for his family.
But then, like, Mary May is literally burying her own brother
Yeah, then we switch to Mary
in
May.
the cemetery, and the priest is okay with it, and everyone's okay with it. I'm like,
She's burying her next to her parents, and the sheriff, who's a dick. I like the sheriff in the game, but in this book, he sucks.
awful.
He walks up, she's burying her brother, and he's like,
Well, she's digging it. So he's in the. Is he in the morgue or is he in the ground? Because that's why I was confused.
He's in the morgue.
Okay.
He's in the morgue right now. She's getting the grave ready, and he comes up like an asshole and is like, "I guess you found your brother." Like, yeah, no shit. And he's dead now. And the county coroner works for the cult, so he lies about the people's death around here, and the sheriff's starting to get suspicious. But he does it in the
I
worst
felt
way
like the
possible.
sheriff. Didn't the sheriff tell John about that Mary May was
Not
talking
the
to him?
sheriff. Remember in the beginning of the game when you get betrayed by
Yeah.
the operator named Nancy? She's part of the
Oh,
cult.
okay. Because I like in the book.
In the sheriff's department,
got
there
that-
is a cult member.
Okay, I thought it was the sheriff that was like, "Hey, John, Mary
No,
May's
the
gonna
sheriff's
come
the
looking for her
guy
brother."
in Faith's region
Oh,
with the mustache. Yeah, and so he's like, "You think the coroner's gonna lie to me or tell me the truth about the death?" And she's like, "Does the coroner have a beard?" And he's like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Then I guess he'll tell you the truth."
Yeah.
And that's like he definitely won't tell you.
that
the
was
truth.
weird because she's like, "Well, it's the same thing that it's a car accident, just like my dad."
Yeah, she said that his heart gave out, and the sheriff's like, "Really?"
She's like, "Well, that's what he said about my dad." So
Yeah. And then she goes back to her bar, and then the young sheepherder comes in to her bar and is like, "Oh, I'm leaving Hope County and I'm gonna tell somebody about this place in the cult." And Mary May says, "You think that's going to matter?" And he's like, "I don't know." And that's the end of the book.
I have to tell someone.
That's the end of the book. It's basically so anticlimactic. He's like,
Dun,
"I'm gonna
dun,
tell somebody
dun.
about this," and she's like, "I don't think that's gonna matter." And he's
Sheep
like,
herder for the win. He says, the sheep herder at the very end, "My father's driving me and a couple of others out of here. I'll find someone that cares and I'll tell them about this place. And you think that'll make a difference?" The boy shook his head. "I don't know. All the things we've seen up here on that mountain, it certainly made a difference with me." "That's what you're doing back here," he said, "trying. I guess all of us have to try in some way, don't we?" "Yes," she said, "we do." I still don't understand why, if she thinks the cult has this over her, why doesn't she just turn herself in and then be like,
because the sheriff's department is infested with cult members.
and they won't believe her?
I don't know. Maybe they'll do something. Maybe she thinks just fuck it. It's all over anyway.
I
Like,
don't know. It was weird.
it is all over anyway. Because
Dun,
a week
dun,
later,
dun.
You show up and destroy everything.
And
then the end of Far Cry 5 happens, which I will not tell you about. You play it for yourself. And that is Far Cry Absolution.
no one was absolved.
No one was absolved. It ended very anticlimactically. Which I guess makes sense because this is a prequel and everything's still garbage when you show up.
I still would like to. I think the thing that I was disappointed is I for some reason thought that it was gonna be the beginning of the cult, and the cult was already established. So I still would like to know how the hell the cult started.
Like
in
the early
first
days
place.
of the brothers coming from Georgia to Montana, and then how they established their church would be interesting.
Yeah.
We need 2 books. We need
I need
another book.
Prequel.
A prequel to this book, please. Overall, it's not bad. It's just, it can get a little boring. It's a little anticlimactic.
And there's definitely some questions that I was like, what just happened?
Yeah, I don't remember a lot of stuff. Like, I don't remember where he talked about his family. That seems important. You think I would remember that?
I remember that. It was very short, but it was
But he did, and I was
dang.
like, wait, what?
Yeah, he's a drunk. That's why he doesn't like Lonnie, because Lonnie drinks.
Takes one to know.
Of himself. Oh, and there's that super creepy thing in the house, too, where it's like he can smell the Kershaw lady on the, she had her clothes laid out, and, it still smelled like her. And, that was so creepy.
He's a hunter. He can smell
That was
you.
so creepy. I was just like, and stop smelling garments, because they don't belong to you. And then he's like, oh, my wife's garment would smell like...
My wife's garment smells like woman.
Yeah.
This smells like woman too.
Ooh,
I'm hunter.
creepy.
Hoorah!
Creepy.
I smell like sweat and grossness.
Yeah.
Although the way they described him eating food at Holly's was also really good. It was like the dripping butter from the garlic or the cornbread. I was like, oh fuck, I'm hungry.
Do we even want to talk about Holly? How did you feel about Holly?
I hated Holly. Holly's weird.
I don't think you're supposed to like her. She's at some point you know that she's just trying to survive, but at the other point,
I don't care if you're trying to survive. You're an asshole.
Yeah, she's part of the problem.
Yeah, she's 100% part of the problem. I don't think so. I didn't find her. I wasn't really looking.
We didn't spend a lot of time in John's territory.
The Boyd thing kind of just was on happenstance, so
kismet.
I didn't expect to find it. So yeah, that's Far Cry Absolution.
Far Cry Absolution.
2 Ubisoft books in a row.
Mm-hmm. Oh, what are we reading next time?
Next, I wrote. Next book is Mark Morris by Dead Island.
That's late at night?
Yep.
Early in the morning.
This was 3 in the morning. I remember writing that out and looking at it and being like, this is too funny not to just keep. So yeah, we're reading the Dead Island novelization. Yes. By Mark Morris.
I'm actually really excited for this.
I'm excited for it too. I'm excited to see how they novelize it.
For as cringy as that game looked, it was actually a lot of fun.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
So I'm excited to read the novel. All right.
Thank you. Our Christmas book.
Yes.
Dead Island.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.